What if everything you thought you knew about the closest person to you was a carefully constructed lie? Imagine being forced into a wheelchair, fed through a tube you didn't need, and having your head shaved to mimic chemotherapy, all to convince the world you were gravely ill. In this video, we are exploring the heart-wrenching tale of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, a young woman who was forced to live a life of unimaginable deceit and maltreatment at the hands of her own mother. This is a story of manipulation, control, and a desperate fight for freedom. From the outside, Gypsy Rose Blanchard seemed like a tragic figure. A frail girl confined to a wheelchair, battling one illness after another. Her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, claimed that Gypsy suffered from a myriad of conditions, including leukemia, muscular dystrophy, and severe asthma. The family received donations, support from charities estimated to be in the tens of thousands of dollars, and even a custom-built home equipped with a wheelchair ramp. To the world, it appeared that Gypsy had the most attentive mother, one who coordinated countless medical appointments, oversaw her daughter's daily regimen of medications, and even arranged for surgeries that were supposedly vital for Gypsy's survival, all in response to the heartbreaking narrative that Dee Dee had carefully crafted. But behind closed doors, the reality was far more sinister. Gypsy's ailments were all fabrications, created by her mother in a cruel psychological game known as Munchausen syndrome by Proxy, a mental disorder in which a caregiver exaggerates or induces health problems in someone under their care to gain attention. This disorder led Dee Dee to subject her daughter to unnecessary surgeries and medications, all to elicit sympathy and financial support from an unsuspecting community. As Gypsy grew older, the extent of Dee Dee's deception deepened. Gypsy was forced to undergo invasive procedures, including the insertion of a feeding tube, despite being perfectly capable of eating on her own. Dee Dee went as far as shaving Gypsy's head, claiming her hair loss was due to chemotherapy. This wasn't just maltreatment. It was a psychological prison where Gypsy was manipulated into believing she was ill, powerless, and utterly dependent on her mother. But that wasn't the worst of it. Dee Dee controlled every aspect of Gypsy's life, keeping her isolated and infantilized, even forcing her to act and speak as though she were years younger than her actual age. The world saw a loving mother and her ill daughter, but in reality, Gypsy was a prisoner in her own home, living under the thumb of her manipulative mother. Understanding what drove Dee Dee Blanchard to subject her daughter to such extreme mistreatment requires a look into her own past. Born in Claudine Petrie in 1967 in Check Bay, Louisiana, Dee Dee grew up in a troubled environment. Family members later described her as a difficult and manipulative person, even from a young age. Allegations surfaced that Dee Dee may have poisoned her stepmother during her teenage years, causing her prolonged illness until the family confronted Dee Dee, after which she abruptly left their home. Throughout her adult life, Dee Dee engaged in petty criminal activities, such as writing fraudulent checks, for which she was arrested on multiple occasions. These small crimes hinted at her deeper tendency to manipulate and deceive others. Her controlling behavior extended to her relationships as well. After separating from Gypsy's father, Rod Blanchard, Dee Dee kept him at a distance, fabricating stories about Gypsy's health and development to discourage contact. She told Rod that Gypsy had several medical issues, including a chromosomal defect and frequent seizures, ensuring he wouldn't question her authority as Gypsy's sole caregiver. Her penchant for control only grew stronger as she raised Gypsy, isolating her daughter from the outside world and making herself the gatekeeper of all information related to Gypsy's so-called illnesses. Dee Dee's need for dominance extended beyond physical control, as she began constructing elaborate lies about Gypsy's health, which eventually spiraled into a complex web of deception This deception allowed her to gain not only sympathy, but financial support from a wide range of charitable organizations, further enabling her controlling behavior. Some psychologists have speculated that Dee Dee may have suffered from Munchausen syndrome by proxy. This disorder might explain why Dee Dee was able to deceive doctors, family members, and entire communities into believing that Gypsy was gravely ill. The devastation of Hurricane Katrina in 2005 provided Dee Dee with an opportunity to further manipulate the narrative, claiming that Gypsy's medical records had been destroyed, thus solidifying her control over her daughter's life. Years of mistreatment pushed Gypsy to the brink. She attempted to escape her mother's control, but each effort was thwarted by Dee Dee's iron grip. Desperation led her to the internet, where she met Nicholas Gojon. What began as an online relationship soon turned into a sinister pact. Over the course of their online relationship, Gypsy confided in Nicholas about everything she had suffered at the hands of her mother. Together, Gypsy and Nicholas Gojon began formulating a plan to free her from Dee Dee's control once and for all. Nicholas, deeply in love with Gypsy and willing to do anything to prove his devotion, was easily convinced. Gypsy did not need to threaten him. He was driven by a strong desire to be her savior and to finally be with her without Dee Dee in the way. The plot took shape in June 2015 when Nicholas arrived in Springfield. The plan was carefully timed. Nicholas would show up at the Blanchard home late at night while Dee Dee was asleep. As arranged, Gypsy left the door unlocked for Nicholas to enter after Dee Dee had fallen asleep. Before the act, Gypsy provided Nicholas with a sharp instrument, gloves, and duct tape. Though she had planned it, Gypsy couldn't bring herself to witness the act, so she retreated to the bathroom and covered her ears to block out the sounds. Nicholas, motivated by his obsession with Gypsy and the belief that he was rescuing her from a life of turmoil, carried out the plan. Dee Dee called out for Gypsy, not knowing that it was her own daughter who had facilitated the deed. Afterwards, the pair fled, but their freedom was short-lived. The details of the event quickly unraveled, leading to their arrest just days later. After the event, Gypsy and Nicholas fled to his home in Wisconsin. But before they left, Gypsy made a critical mistake. Wanting her mother's body to be found so that she could have a proper burial, Gypsy instructed Nicholas to post 2 disturbing messages on their shared Facebook account. These messages, meant to ensure Dee Dee's discovery, alarmed friends and neighbors. Concerned by their posts, a neighbor contacted the police, who performed a welfare check at the Blanchard home. When the officers entered the house, they found Dee Dee, but Gypsy was missing. Fearing that Gypsy had been kidnapped or was in danger, a nationwide search was launched. Authorities traced the post back to Nicholas Gojon's home in Wisconsin by tracking the IP address used to publish them. 2 days after the murder, police arrested Gypsy and Nicholas at his home. Gypsy, walking unaided, shocked the officers and community, who had always believed her to be seriously ill and wheelchair-bound. The truth behind Dee Dee's years of deception began to emerge. It was only then that the world learned the shocking truth of Gypsy's life. Years of mistreatment that culminated in this unthinkable act. In the trial that followed, Gypsy's stories shocked the world. The prosecution sought justice for Dee Dee's death, while the defense argued that years of psychological manipulation had driven Gypsy to her breaking point. The jury, sympathetic to her plight, sentenced Gypsy to 10 years in custody, a much lighter sentence than the life she might have faced. As for Nicholas, his trial would focus on his intellectual disadvantages and the extent to which he was influenced by Gypsy's desperation. In November of 2018, he was found guilty. During the trial, Nicholas's defense argued that his autism and obsessive love for Gypsy made him vulnerable to manipulation, but the jury ultimately rejected this defense. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In December 2023, after serving 7 years in custody, Gypsy Rose Blanchard was released. Now a free woman, she's begun to rebuild her life, finding love and connection in the world outside. With nearly 5 million supporters on social media, Gypsy has embraced her newfound voice, speaking out about her past and advocating for those who have suffered similar situations. Her time behind bars may have impacted her deeply, but Gypsy is determined to heal and help others do the same. Gypsy Rose Blanchard's story is a haunting reminder of the dark side of parental control and the devastating effects of psychological mistreatment. While the actions that led to Dee Dee's end are undeniably tragic, they also exemplify the lengths one might go to break free from a tough situation. Let this story serve as a call to vigilance, empathy, and the importance of speaking out when something doesn't seem right. If you are interested in diving deeper into the story of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, you can check out the HBO documentary series Mummy, Dead and Dearest streaming on Max and The Act on Hulu. If you found this story compelling, please like, subscribe and share. Stay tuned for more true crime stories that uncover the truth behind the headlines. Thank you for watching Campfire Crime Tales, and remember, every crime has a story, every story has a lesson.